Hey guys, okay, so you just saw those pictures that I posted. I had a Dodge Ignition that had jammed up. I'd cut a new key because the key was worn down. And basically it's like a 10-year-old Dodge, and this is a pretty common problem where you go to put the key in and it won't turn at all. It just freezes up. Typically it gives you warning. You have to jiggle the key to get it to work, and he did that. He had to do that before I cut this new code key by the numbers, and it worked well for a while, but come to find out the ignition itself was bad. What happens is there's this going in and out of the key, and the wafers move it up and down, grime, dirt, and the Zamac, I believe it's called, metal that this is made out of, will make those chambers, those wafers, stick in the chambers. So I was able to get this one turned, luckily. Sometimes you can get it to turn. If you put the key in and it's not turning, if you come in and you take anything and you just tap like that, not hard, not using a hammer, but just anything, you can sometimes get it to turn. Once you get it to turn, you turn it to the run position and you pop the shroud off, and you'll see this little spring-loaded bolt. You press that in and pull the ignition out. Once the ignition's out, of course, if you turn it to this position, you're probably going to have to tap it again and get it to turn to the accessory. If you can get it to turn to the accessory, you're good. And there's two spring-loaded mechanisms here. So one of them has a 90-degree stop. This is if this was in the vehicle, the radio would be on, it would be cranked. So basically, the spring-loaded tab, you press down, and then putting pressure on the key head, you turn it past that, and once it's past that, the core will slip out. Now be careful with these, because these will come out. There's one spring in here. Underneath that, they're spring loaded, so they will fall out. Be careful with that. So just set this aside. You're going to want to hose this out. You're going to want to have lubricant and a contact cleaner. So I already did a video on this one, so I've already kind of fixed this one. Whenever this happens, you have to put a new ignition in. The only reason I'm bringing this up is, say if you're in the field and you don't have a new ignition and you have to get the vehicle running, this is what you do to do so. Obviously you could pull all the wafers out, but that's dangerous because anybody could drive off with it. Now in those pictures that you saw earlier, these first few wafers, and that's typically the problem with these first few wafers, the inside of the chamber gets jammed up and they don't pop out like that, which, like I said, I've already done this ignition and I'm just going back over it because I messed up the other video. They'll stay in, and that's your good indication that the wafer chambers are jammed up. So they're alternating wafers and they are numbered. So come through using a narrow tool to slide the wafers out and lay them out on a counter here. Alright, and then there's 4 springs as well, so you want to dump those springs out. And flip it over to the other side. Pull your other 4 out. Make sure and put them in order. See how I'm laying them out here. Okay, and dump those springs out. Now, in here, you're probably going to have really dirty wafers. There's going to be crud here in every one of them. So, and the other problem, and the main problem, is down in these chambers where the wafers slide in and out, where the hole goes through, the metal starts kind of bowing out and putting little edges in there that keep that wafer from smoothly going in and out. And it also can be, one of the wafers can have the burrs on it as well. So what you do is you take I'm using a 600 grit sandpaper, and you cut a small strip of it. And depending on the thickness of your sandpaper, you may have to double it up or triple it up. But either which way, you're going to want to get that sandpaper in there. And kind of hard to do, but you want to run it in and out of that chamber. Now be careful, because you don't want to be too aggressive, because there's this sidebar that goes up and down, which is basically the control, and also this part can fail, but most of the time it's these chambers. So I'm not going to spend as much time as you should doing this, but you should very carefully just go in from each side. And in the beginning it'll be real crunchy, and you can definitely tell that it's, you know, there's something down in there. And basically once you get them all cleaned out, and again, I'm doing this a very short version of this, you should spend some pretty good quality time. Number one, having this as tight as can be so that it gets, you know, full coverage. And after you do that, you're gonna, you know, run it in and out, do it in every chamber, even if they're not all sticking, since you've got it out to do it. So once you're fairly confident those chambers are smooth, you want to get the other piece of sandpaper, and you want to give the wafers a little brushing. Now, this is very fine sandpaper, so I've got 600 and 1200 grit sandpaper just for this reason. So, you know, you just go through, you take every wafer, and you give it a little brush on the sandpaper to smooth off some of those burrs. Let's look at this one before I do it. Now that one is a number, it's in like the 4th position. But if we can see right here, that metal has kind of an issue going on there. So that one we're going to kind of give it a little bit better. Give it a little bit better scraping. So you're doing that on both sides of all the wafers. And another problem with it is always the first chamber is always going to be the worst, because that gets the initial, you know, going in and out. So since this is just going to be a temporary situation, and even on permanent situations, I'm going to go ahead and toss that first wafer. We're not going to put that wafer back in. We want to, after we've done this, you can either use canned air to spray it out. Hey, thank you. Have a good one. You can either use canned air to spray it out, and then use contact cleaner. We use electric contact cleaner, spray it out. Spray it all out, clean it all off, and take your springs. Remember, we're going to skip that first one, so let's flip it over and start on this side. Oh wait, we got it pointing that way. Remember which direction you're going in. So we're going to start there, drop our springs back in, and drop our freshly cleaned and sanded down wafers back in. And remember, you got to skip, it's every other one. So this is a 3 here. Now when you buy a kit, it's going to come with these wafers. So all new wafers, new springs, everything's new, so you don't have to really worry about it. Again, we're just doing this video if you are stuck, stranded, and cannot go anywhere, and you don't have access to a new ignition immediately. Chrysler Ignition, okay, remember I'm skipping that first one, and because it catches the most use. So even though I've scraped it out and a wafer woodwork in it, I'm not going to take the chance, especially since this is, again, an emergency situation. These are very easy to pop in and out as long as you can turn the key, and that's the problem. So coming through and putting all our wafers back in, and we're going to make sure they all spring up and down. See, it's doing a fairly good job. And on a new one, if you're doing the new one, it's going to come with a little pack of gel. The company who makes these ignitions wants you to use the whole pack of gel. So you want to squirt it here and here, and then squirt it all over this, forcing it down into the wafer chambers. You want it coated. You want this whole thing to be white. But before you put that gel on there, I might back up just a bit, but before you put the gel on there, you want to make sure your sidebar drops. The key's out, it's up, put the key in, it should smoothly drop, no angle. If there's an angle, that means you've got the wrong wafers in, so you're gonna have to take them out and mess around with it to get it right. So as long as it drops smoothly, like it's doing here, you are good to put it back together. And you go ahead at this point, once you've verified that, then go ahead and smear your lubricant all over the new ignition. This one is not new, so basically you're just going to make sure this works. Preferably if you have a lubricant with you, even if it's just WD-40 or anything besides graphite, you want to go ahead and hose it down now. And then to put it back together, you're just going to put it in, turn it until it catches, and there you go. Thanks for watching.